Hi, everybody. I'm Travis with Kaiju and Coffee. For the second episode, we're going to be talking about the Cloverfield franchise. As you can see, it's just me today. It's going to be like that sometimes, but for today, it's like that because I actually don't know anybody that cares about the Cloverfield franchise, to be honest. I asked my brother about it, and he said that he hadn't even seen the first one, which was a surprise because he's like me. He grew up on Godzilla films. But yeah, so first I got to thank everybody that's sticking around after the first episode. I know it was rough in more ways than one, but just stick with us and it's only going to get better from here. So the night of the Super Bowl, Nick texted me. That was the guy that was with me for the first episode. He texted me and said that apparently there was a new Cloverfield film coming out. I wasn't watching the game. I had gone to dinner with a friend, but he was texting me about it, and he said that apparently the new one was going to come out on Netflix that night, and that got my attention because it was a franchise that had my attention, since its inception. So that's where we'll start is with the first one, the Cloverfield film from 2008. That was a film that falls into the category of films that I really wanted to like, but I just didn't. Um, it was it felt like it was something that was very much for me personally. It was a giant monster film with a Hollywood budget, which was still pretty rare at that point. We'd had Godzilla back in '97, which it's hard to count, and King Kong from '05. But otherwise, that was really the only thing that was like that at the time. I completely missed the hype. I spent all of 2007 outside the country with limited internet access, so I understand that like there was just this big groundswell of people looking into it and looking at it online and everything. I knew nothing about it. Like I probably heard the name, and then I saw the trailer. Probably when I saw I Am Legend, I think. But what really resonated with me was the poster. The ripped up Statue of Liberty, the big wake leading into the city with a bunch of destruction on the horizon. That really caught my attention. It was even now I think it's a really cool looking poster. But so yeah, I watched it and I hated it. I just didn't care about the people. I'm not really into found footage. The only one maybe two I like is like Wreck, and its remake I thought wasn't bad. The sound design I thought was pretty good. That was Quarantine, but really otherwise I'm really not into found footage. The shaky cam stuff, it doesn't bother me physically, but I want to see what's going on. You've got this big monster tearing up the city, and I want to get a look at it. I want to see it, and mostly what you're seeing is like the sidewalk and the people and everything. And I understand what they were trying to do. It's not that I don't understand. I do, and it's just that I like my monster films where I can really see it. So I just couldn't bring myself to really get that into it. It became just the film itself was a distraction. Not showing me what I wanted to see, showing me other stuff. I also kind of wanted to know like maybe where it came from. I didn't need its whole life story or anything like that, but something would have been good. And yeah, now I know all these years later that it was basically spelled out if you had the time and inclination to go online and look. And so now I have YouTube videos to spell it out for me. But yeah. And so then years later, I think I must have saw its trivia page on IMDb or something, and they said, "Oh, you see something fall out of the sky," and I was like, "Well, that's something." I ran out and rented it that day, I'm sure, and looked at it because I was like, "Oh, I didn't see that." If you blink, you miss it. But I kind of liked thinking that it was from space. It was something, anything. But now I know obviously it wasn't from space. It just coincidentally this satellite fell and then a big monster came out. But hey, whatever. It seemed a little bit of a coincidence. But yeah, so it kind of came and went. I got hyped and then it was over. And then 8 years goes by, and along comes another film called 10 Cloverfield Lane. And I rewatched that the night after I watched the Cloverfield Paradox because I really liked it. I'll just get this out of the way. I really liked it. It was probably one of my favorite films from that year. I thought it was really good. Um, the same thing with its promotional material. It was eye catching. I remember, it opened with these like really claustrophobic shots, and I think pretty much the montage when they're just settling into their routine and having fun and making food and playing games, watching films or whatever. But it was all really tight and low ceilings and everything. And then there was the old school tech of the jukebox, and so right away I was like, this is interesting, and then it would run through, and then it goes to the end, and it's got Cloverfield in the name, and they're saying, everybody's saying it's in the same universe, and I felt that was kind of a stretch to say that it was in the same universe, because obviously there's going to be spoilers here. um, John Goodman's performance was amazing. He was the perfect creeper. He creeped me out so much. But he's like ranting and raving about aliens, Martians, all this, and I get that, it makes sense. But if you want to be in the same universe as 8 years prior, where some big monster tore up Manhattan, if this guy's going on a rant about aliens, I kind of would expect him to say something about that big monster. But I don't know. Despite its dubious connections, I really did enjoy it. It was taut, it was gripping, and I just really liked it. I understand that its script, it was its own thing, and then they just kind of retconned it into the Cloverfield universe, and that's all fine. But I've heard a lot of people say that they liked it until the end. It would have been better without the aliens. I wouldn't go so far to say it would have been better without the aliens, but I'd say my favorite part of the film was before they showed up. And I would say that how over the top it got was definitely a detriment. I'm not saying the concept was the plot twist or whatever was the problem, but how over the top it was, you know. But yeah, when she looks over and she sees that ship or whatever it was on the horizon, it was very cool. I like that shot a lot. I just didn't like that, it's this big Lovecraftian spacecraft monster thing, and she takes it down with a Molotov cocktail. I was just like, okay, I guess you can do that. But yeah, everything up until the ending I thought was really good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I would highly recommend 10 Cloverfield Lane. And there's actually another film that I think would make a really good companion piece to it. It stars one of my favorite actors, Michael Shannon. It was actually, some of the scenes were filmed less than a mile from where I'm sitting right now. It's called Take Shelter. I haven't met anybody that knows about it. It looks like it just kind of came and went. But it goes with a lot of the same themes of 10 Cloverfield Lane, a lot of the same concepts. I think there's a lot of parallels, and I think it would make a really good companion piece to it. To be quite honest with you, yeah. So yeah, a little segue into Take Shelter there, but yeah, that will bring us to, of course, the Cloverfield Paradox, which, as far as I know, same situation. It was a different script. Apparently, it was going to be a whole different film. It was almost done, and then they were like, "Let's make it a Cloverfield film, I guess, and we'll dump it on Netflix or whatever." I don't know, whatever. I mean, the marketing ploy was certainly is going to be one that's going to make it famous or infamous or whatever. How many films are announced at the big game and then released later that night. But yeah, we really got to get into this one because the Cloverfield Paradox pretty much sucks. I really didn't like it at all. I would kind of call it, I kind of think of it as the Cloverfield cop-out on more than one level too, because like they just retroactively were like, we're going to have an explanation for these other two films, and it's kind of going to come down to just, because and then the events of the film is kind of seems like a cop out too, because I mean, obviously, we're going to get into spoilers. They're running a big particle collider in space, and it rends a hole in existence, and all these parallel dimensions are smashing into each other. And they're saying it unleashed chaos. And I know that's not really a term you could define really easily, but I wouldn't really consider what happened in the film to be chaos. I'm going to use a word that I try to avoid using because I think it's like overused these days. I don't know, people just seem to like it, but it really seemed more random. Like just random things were happening. Like we just wrecked the ship from the other universe dimension, sorry, and then one of the people from that other dimension is now in our walls with a bunch of wires through them, and it was like, oh, okay. And then we got this other guy, and he's got worms in his body, and he's got the sphere in his chest that wouldn't fit, and he's got voices talking to him. Really, it just seemed like a remake of Event Horizon, because like they would say basically, oh, this universe is trying to kill us. I'm like, yeah, I've seen that before. I don't know. I really don't know, to be honest. What they thought they would accomplish with that. I guess I just have a problem with them retroactively saying that, oh, we have an explanation for this thing that, we came up with 10 years ago and left it completely open ended. Maybe that was the plan all along. I don't know, but it's just doesn't seem to really fit. Like, I know a lot of the Die Hard sequels, they started out as just completely different scripts. And that's fine because they all boil down to the blue collar good guy takes on all the bad guys. That's not a hard formula to just pack everything into. It all comes down to that. But with the Cloverfield franchise, you have this you got a found footage monster film, and then you got, after nobody expected anything else, you have this tight little thriller that was a lot of fun. Okay, and so then you have this like science fiction-y space film, and it's supposed to explain the other two, and I guess I just kind of had a hard time with that. The effects weren't that great. I mean, there was nothing that was terrible, but it wasn't enough to really prop up what you're seeing, all these random things you're seeing. Like, the ship is really just trying to kill these people, but why didn't they just all fly to a million different atoms to all different corners of the universe? If that would be pretty chaotic if that's what you're going for. But I know that would be a short film, so you can't do that. But yeah, the ending reminded me of Life a little bit, because typically with these types of films, you don't get the bad ending. You get a good ending, a happy ending, whatever. Even Alien and Aliens, they had a happy ending, as dark as they got at times. And so then, Life had the bad ending, and Cloverfield did too. But it kind of felt like, for me personally, it felt like the ending was trying to troll me a little bit, because ever since the first film, I would have been happy with just a straightforward sequel about the monster doing monster things. I would have been perfectly happy with that. I would have been very welcoming of that. And, we don't get that. We never got that. We got a couple glimpses of it in Paradox. And then there at the end, the monster, it's like it pops its head up above the clouds like Porky Pig sticking his head through at the end of Lucian. That's all, folks. It's like, hey, Travis, you've been looking for me. You want a good look at me? Here I am. Okay, bye. I'm like, no, that's not quite what I had in mind. But yeah, I guess that's just what they're gonna give us. And apparently, there's another one coming out pretty quick, from what I understand. I can't even imagine how that's gonna go. I really can't. But I'm sure I'll watch it, as long as it's not another Event Horizon remake. All right, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time.